Charles was born in Denmark, only son of the three children of Saint King Canute IV of Denmark and Adela of Flanders. His father was assassinated in Odense Cathedral in 1086, and Adela fled back to Flanders, taking the very young Charles with her but leaving her twin daughters Ingeborg and Cecilia in Denmark. Charles grew up at the comital court of his grandfather Robert I of Flanders and uncle Robert II of Flanders. In 1092, Adela went to southern Italy to marry Roger Borsa, Duke of Apulia, leaving Charles in Flanders. When he grew up, he became a knight and had the title of the Count of Flanders. Charles traveled to the Holy Land in 1107 or 1108 with a fleet of English, Danish, and Flemish crusaders. In 1124, he was offered the crown of the Kingdom of Jerusalem by a faction of the nobility opposed to King Baldwin II, but refused. During Baldwin's rule, Charles was closely associated with him, and the people came to have a high regard for his wise and beneficent ways, as well as his personal holiness. Charles would return home to Flanders. According to Galbert of Bruges, at the urging of his advisors, who feared that if Charles stayed in the Holy Land, Flanders would be completely at the mercy of the Arembold clan. During the famine that struck Flanders in 1125, Charles ordered legumes to be planted on his own estates and given away to the starving. He often stated, according to Galbert of Bruges, that it was better for the rich of Flanders to drink only water than for a single poor person to die of starvation. He distributed bread to the poor en masse, and also launched a draconian crackdown against the very common business practice of buying up and hoarding grain and other food supplies during famine to drastically drive up the price, and only much later, selling it off at an enormous profit. For example, Charles expelled all the Jews from Flanders, attributing allegedly similar activities by Jewish merchants as a cause of additional suffering. Meanwhile, at the urging of his advisors, the Count launched legal proceedings to reduce the extremely wealthy, politically connected, and demonstrably non-Jewish Arembold family, who were heavily engaged in these same disreputable business activities and many others like them, to the status of serfs. This encouraged their undying wrath, and one day in 1127, as Charles was praying in the church of Saint Donation, they set upon him and killed him. On the morning of March 2nd, 1127, Charles was kneeling in prayer with his outstretched hand filled with coins in order to give alms to passing poor people inside the church of Saint Donation. During Mass and in violation of the Catholic teaching about the real presence, a group of knights answering to the Arembold family entered the church and hacked Charles to death with broadswords. The brutal and sacrilegious murder of the popular Count provoked widespread public outrage, and he was almost immediately regarded popularly as a martyr and saint, although not formally beatified until 1882. The Arembolds, who had planned and carried out the murder of Charles, were besieged inside the comital castle of Bruges by the enraged nobles and commoners of Bruges and Ghent. All the conspirators were defeated, captured, and tortured to death. King Louis VI of France, who had supported the uprising against the Arembolds, then used his influence to select William Clito of the House of Normandy as the next Count of Flanders.